Englix. Learn English in the most interesting ways. Forget boring textbooks.
Hello, English enthusiasts. I'm Emily from Englix. Welcome to today's short podcast episode. If you're new here, subscribe and let's practice English speaking together.
You know, usually when you picture an airport departures terminal, there's a pretty predictable rhythm to it, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. You've got the vacationers, the business travelers.
Exactly. People in suits scrolling on their phones. But the thing is, it's all temporary. You leave, you do your thing, you come back. The fundamental expectation is a return.
Right. It's a closed loop. The psychological weight of that departure is, well, it's minimal because the return ticket is already booked.
But then, if you look closer at the boarding areas for flights heading to, like, London, Toronto, Sydney, New York, or Berlin,
right,
you start to notice these really distinct clusters.
Yeah, the international students.
Exactly. Young people with overloaded backpacks, clutching these thick folders of documents, and they're surrounded by families who are physically holding back tears. I mean, it's not a vacation, it's a complete foundational upheaval.
It really is. We are looking at an annual migration of millions of students, and the sheer scale of it is just staggering.
It's massive.
It's one of the most complex demographic shifts happening in the modern world, and we have this tendency to reduce the entire phenomenon to a really simple phrase like, oh, they're going off to college.
Right, which sounds so casual.
Yeah, but that drastically understates what is actually happening. This is a massive reallocation of global human capital.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we are unpacking the incredibly dense web of reasons why students uproot their entire lives to move to first world countries.
Specifically places like the USA, the UK, Canada, Australia, and Germany.
Exactly. We are pulling insights today from a really illuminating compilation called The Global Classroom: Motives and Realities of Studying Abroad.
It's a fascinating read.
It really is. And our mission for you today is to look past the glossy, perfectly lit university brochures. We are going to explore the raw human ambition, the brutal economics, and the massive cultural shifts driving this movement.
Because we really have to dispense with the idea that this migration is driven by some pure, abstract love of learning.
Right. It's not just about sitting under a tree reading poetry.
No, not at all. To understand the global classroom, we have to recognize it as a deeply interconnected web of pragmatic motivations colliding with some intensely harsh on-the-ground realities.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the most visible layer, the hook that universities actually use to draw these students in, the academic pull.
The baseline draw.
Right, the baseline draw is access to a better quality of education and internationally recognized degrees. But, like, what does better quality actually mean here? Because it's not just about having a professor who is slightly better lecturer.
No, not at all. I mean, the real differentiator is the infrastructure.
Yeah.
We're talking about access to advanced research facilities, immense funding pools, and industry partnerships that simply do not exist in a student's home country.
Wow. Yeah.
It's the difference between, say, learning about theoretical renewable energy grids from a 10-year-old textbook
Right.
versus working on a functional prototype in a well-funded laboratory in Germany alongside professors who are actively consulting for the energy sector.
So it sounds like an international degree isn't just a piece of paper then. It's more like a global career passport.
A global career passport. I like that.
Yeah, it's like it gets you past the velvet rope into international networks and career opportunities that would otherwise just be permanently closed off.
That's exactly it. And that passport has a very specific currency. It's not just the fancy crest printed on the diploma.
Right.
When a student is trained on the bleeding edge of an industry, say, using the latest CRISPR technology in a lab in Boston, they are internalizing the absolute frontier of that field.
They're seeing what's coming next before anyone else does.
Exactly. They are learning the unspoken norms of the industry, the specific software that leading corporations use, the regulatory frameworks of top-tier markets. That makes the student inherently more valuable on the global market.
Okay, so the immediate payoff of this academic immersion is the exposure to international work environments.
Yes.
Students aren't just learning a syllabus, they're learning how global corporations function and how cross-cultural teams communicate. They are building a global networking web literally from day one.
And honestly, those networking opportunities frequently eclipse the academic knowledge in terms of raw career value.
Wait, really? The networking is more important than the actual classes.
In many cases, yes. Think about it. A recommendation from a professor who plays golf with venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, or who sits on the board of an engineering firm in London, that opens doors that a brilliant academic record back home simply cannot unlock.
That makes total sense. It bridges the gap between, theoretical knowledge and practical high-income employability.
Exactly.
Which actually brings up a really fascinating tension here. Once you have that global career passport, what are you actually using it for?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. I want to look at the hidden drivers here.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that for a massive percentage of these students, the academic education itself is almost secondary? Because looking at the data, this whole endeavor operates heavily as a calculated immigration strategy or, a very expensive mechanism to satisfy immense family pressure for social prestige.
What's fascinating here is that it is rarely an either-or situation. It is a highly synergistic blend. But the hidden drivers you mentioned are undeniably powerful engines.
Let's break those down.
Sure. So on a personal level, there is this massive drive to master English communication skills, because in the globalized economy, English fluency acts as an economic multiplier.
Right, it just automatically bumps up your earning potential.
Exactly. But you mentioned the family pressure, and that is where the mechanics of this migration become truly intense.
Yeah, the data on this was wild.
In many developing nations, sending a child to study in the US or the UK is the ultimate status symbol.
So it's not just a personal journey for the student. It's a profound family project.
It elevates the standing of the entire extended family. We really have to look at how social prestige actually manifests in the real world.
Okay, give me an example.
In certain cultures, having a child studying at a Western university translates into tangible societal leverage. It can literally mean better loan terms for the parents' business because they are perceived as successful.
Oh, wow. So it has immediate financial benefits for the parents back home.
Yes. And it dramatically elevates the student's prospects in the marriage market, too. The degree is literal social capital.
That is wild. And because the stakes for that social capital are so incredibly high, families will go to extraordinary lengths to finance it, right?
Absolutely extraordinary lengths.
I mean, scholarships and financial aid programs exist, obviously, but they are incredibly competitive and they cover, a tiny fraction of the total population.
A very small fraction, yeah. For the vast majority, we are looking at families pooling their entire life savings, selling ancestral land, or taking on high-interest loans just to make this happen.
Selling land. It's a massive, massive gamble.
They're willing to assume that catastrophic financial risk because of the ultimate end games. It is viewed as an investment with an expected multi-generational return.
Okay, let's talk about those returns. The first one is pretty obvious. Drastically higher earning potential, right?
Right. Even an entry-level professional salary in a first-world country can completely dwarf mid-career earnings in a developing nation.
But the second return? That's the real prize. Long-term settlement and immigration.
Yes. Many of these host countries have post-graduation work visas explicitly designed to retain top-tier talent.
Because they want to keep the smart people they just trained.
Exactly. Countries like Canada and Australia use a comprehensive ranking system, a points-based immigration model.
I've heard of this. How does it work?
Basically, an applicant gets points for their age, their language proficiency, and their work experience. But holding a degree from an institution within that specific country is a massive points multiplier.
Oh, I see.
The host country essentially uses the university system as a highly effective filtration mechanism for future citizens.
Okay, so the universities act as the velvet rope, and the immigration department just relies on the universities to do the vetting for them.
That's exactly how the system is designed to function.
And for the student, the degree is the literal key that unlocks that point system. So personal growth intertwines with this highly pragmatic, calculated reality of seeking a permanent settlement foothold.
And the host countries benefit immensely. They get young, highly educated, culturally assimilated taxpayers who require absolutely zero state investment in their childhood development.
It's an economic masterstroke for the host nation.
It really is.
But, okay, think about the pressure that creates for the student. Imagine you're that student.
It's immense.
If your entire family has sold land or taken on crippling debt to buy you this global passport so you can secure an immigration foothold, failure is just not an option.
No.
And that failure is not an option. Mindset creates a terrifying tightrope. If your visa, your family's life savings, and your future earning potential are all riding on maintaining a 3.5 GPA in your second language, what happens when that student inevitably hits a wall?
This is the reality check we have to talk about. The psychological burden placed on these students creates a pressure cooker environment that is rarely, if ever, acknowledged in those glossy university brochures.
Yeah, the emotional hurdles are severe. I mean, we tend to romanticize studying abroad, right? For you listening, you might picture sitting in a quaint coffee shop reading philosophy in Paris or something.
The Instagram version of studying abroad.
Exactly. But the reality of isolation in a foreign culture is heavy.
And the sunk cost fallacy plays a massive role here too.
How so?
Well, because of the immense financial and social investment made by their families, these students feel they cannot express dissatisfaction or failure.
Oh, man.
They cannot call home and say, I am deeply depressed and I want to come back. That would mean admitting that the family's life savings were just wasted.
And it would mean a catastrophic loss of the social prestige their family just acquired.
Exactly. So they suffer in silence.
That's heartbreaking. And while they are suffering in silence, they are dealing with staggering financial burdens. Let's look at the actual economics of international tuition for a second.
Let's do it.
International students are charged significantly higher fees than domestic students, often 3 to 4 times as much.
It's astronomical, and we have to look at the economic mechanism driving that. In countries like the UK, Australia, and increasingly the US, international students are essentially subsidizing the entire domestic education system.
Wait, really? Subsidizing the domestic students?
Yes. Over the last few decades, as state funding for higher education has been slashed across the board, universities have replaced that lost revenue by treating international students as a core business model.
Wow.
They are quite literally the cash cows keeping the lights on in these institutions.
Okay, but that puts an incredible burden on the student to generate cash while they're studying, which leads to this grueling balancing act.
It's a logistical nightmare.
I mean, they are managing extreme academic pressure while juggling part-time work just to survive the punishing cost of living in cities like Sydney, Toronto, or London.
And those are not cheap cities.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's like these students are essentially trying to run a marathon while balancing a checkbook and learning a new language all at the same time.
That is a perfect analogy.
It's like they're operating on 2 entirely different operating systems simultaneously. In the morning, they're running the high-status future tech leaders software for their professors and for their family back home.
Right.
But at night, they boot up the survival software to figure out how to stretch $20 to buy a week of groceries.
And that cognitive dissonance is the daily reality for hundreds of thousands of students. And it directly leads to highly exploitative labor dynamics.
Because the visa limits, right?
Yes. Because student visas often strictly limit the number of hours a person can legally work, usually around 20 hours a week. Many students who desperately need more money are forced into the shadow economy.
The shadow economy, so under-the-table work.
Exactly. They take cash-in-hand jobs in restaurants, cleaning services, or driving for delivery apps where they are paid well below minimum wage.
That's awful, but they can't report it, can they?
No, they can't. They can't report the exploitation because doing so would reveal they are violating their visa terms, which would result in immediate deportation.
So they are completely trapped. The gap between the Instagram version of studying abroad and the Tuesday night reality of a cash-in-hand dishwashing shift is just massive.
It's 2 different worlds.
And yet, despite this agonizing reality check, despite the exploitation and the psychological toll, the numbers show this migration isn't slowing down at all. It is accelerating.
It is. The larger macro forces of globalization dictate that the demand for these global credentials will only increase. The middle classes in developing nations are expanding, which means more families have the baseline capital to attempt this leap.
Which forces us to look at the future of the global classroom. And I want to push back on the necessity of this entire model for a minute.
Okay, go for it.
Let's look at the rise of remote work and digital connectivity. We've seen a massive shift in how global companies hire. Tech companies, marketing firms, finance sectors, they're hiring globally without requiring relocation.
That's true.
So if I can log into a server in London from my living room in Mumbai and get paid in a strong currency, why undergo the brutal culture shock, the homesickness, and the hundreds of thousands of dollars in expense to physically move across the world?
It's a very fair question. And remote work and digital connectivity have absolutely revolutionized access to information and access to certain types of task-based employment.
Right.
You can absolutely be a brilliant remote contractor from anywhere in the world. But the global passport we discussed earlier is about much more than executing tasks.
So it's about the intangibles.
Exactly. The human element of globalization remains stubbornly physical when it comes to the highest tiers of influence and integration.
But surely the landscape is shifting. If a student's goal is purely economic, couldn't they bypass the university system entirely and just build a portfolio online? I mean, why go into debt?
They could, and some certainly do. But they usually hit a ceiling.
A ceiling.
Yes. The tangible benefits of international networking, the impromptu conversations after a seminar, the serendipitous lab partnerships, the local internships that lead to executive track job offers, those rely on physical proximity. You are building trust, and trust is still largely built in person. Furthermore, if the ultimate goal is long-term settlement and immigration, like we discussed, a remote degree simply doesn't grant you a physical visa.
Right, you can't emigrate via Zoom.
You really can't. The host countries use physical presence, cultural assimilation over a period of years, and local graduation as the core filters for their immigration pathway.
That's total sense.
So physical mobility remains the necessary key to unlock those specific high-value outcomes. Remote work changes the landscape of employment, sure, but it does not replace the comprehensive societal integration that a physical degree provides.
Okay, I get that. But there is a crucial reality we have to highlight here for everyone listening. Studying abroad is not a guaranteed golden ticket. It is not automatically the best choice for everyone.
Definitely not. Success in this endeavor is highly, highly conditional. The attrition rates can be brutal.
Because of all that pressure we talked about.
Exactly. Success depends entirely on a student's individual goals, their financial reality, their academic baseline, and their psychological capacity to weather the isolation.
It takes a specific kind of resilience.
It does. Navigating this ecosystem requires deeply informed decision-making. A student cannot just pick a prestigious-sounding destination on a map, assume the massive debt, and expect the system to automatically produce a lucrative career and a passport.
Right. It requires knowing exactly what you're trying to buy with that ticket and whether you can actually afford the hidden psychological and financial cost.
Precisely.
So to wrap this all up for you listening, the global classroom is essentially the ultimate high-risk, high-reward ecosystem.
The ultimate gamble.
Exactly. It offers unparalleled growth, bleeding-edge academic access, and the potential to radically alter a family's economic and social trajectory for generations. But it exacts a heavy, heavy toll.
Very heavy.
It requires operating in a relentless pressure cooker, where failure carries devastating consequences.
It demands an incredible amount of resilience. The students who successfully navigate this system emerge with a profound adaptability, but they pay a steep price in emotional and physical labor to acquire it.
Well said. As we close out today's deep dive, there's one final piece of this puzzle I want to leave you with. A thought for you to ponder that builds on everything we've unpacked today about the mechanics of this system.
It's a big question.
It is. We've talked extensively about what the students gain, the degrees, the networks, the earning potential. And we've talked about what these first world host countries gain. A steady, self-funded pipeline of top-tier, highly motivated global talent to drive their economies. But if the brightest, most ambitious, most resilient minds from the developing world are utilizing these international degrees to secure long-term settlement and higher earning potential abroad, what happened to the countries they leave behind?
Yeah.
Are these global classrooms inadvertently engineering a permanent brain drain, quietly stripping the developing world of the exact doctors, engineers, and innovators it desperately needs to build its own future infrastructure?
It's a profound structural paradox. The very mechanism of individual empowerment for these students serves as an engine of systemic depletion for their home countries.
It really makes you think. Next time you're in an airport terminal, look at those departure gates a little differently. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
Englix. Learn English in the most interesting ways. Forget boring textbooks.